Hey, welcome back to another video. This time we're talking Yu-Gi-Oh again. It's been a hot minute since I talked about Yu-Gi-Oh! I think the last time I did was when I went over Master Duel in January. And this time we're going to be talking about the cards again. Previously, I talked about how flavor text can tell a story, and now we're going to sort of go the opposite end of the spectrum. Instead of praising something about cards, we're going to poke fun. Not so much criticize, but we're gonna have some fun at the expense of Konami of America, because we're going to talk about how cards have been censored, mostly, funny examples of it, things that I just find generally interesting. The Yu-Gi-Oh card game came out over here in the US in 2003, which was a point in time where a lot of Japanese media that was brought over here was changed or altered or censored in some way. And as a result, we got a lot of very funny changes to the anime, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with, as well as the cards, which are probably a little less immediately familiar to a lot of people. Although there are plenty of notable examples of cards being censored, like Monster Reborn being turned from an Ankh into whatever the hell is on the actual card, to even every single Harpy Lady being given more of a leotard so they're not so naked. But big examples like that are ones that pretty much everybody knows about, and I'm not going to be talking about them, largely because they're so well known. And I wanted to shed some light on some of the more obscure, weirder censorship changes, and just ones that I found that I thought were entertaining or interesting in some way. Just to be clear, I'm not intending for this video to be an attack on things being censored or altered for whatever reason. As much as I don't think the cards should be censored, especially nowadays, I also don't really get that upset when they are. I find it just a chance to look at the way different cultures decide to do things, basically. Even if I don't, like I said, even if I don't agree with the fact that we are changing these cards. So to begin, we have Angel 07, a card that came out in 2007 in Japan and was packaged alongside a volume of Yu-Gi-Oh R. Now, I know what you're thinking initially. Well, this card is literally an angel. That's a biblical thing, and it was pretty common for censorship at the time to remove basically any and all references to biblical entities at all. You can see it in plenty of other cards in the game where things that had crosses were removed or changed. So you might reasonably think, okay, they changed the name, so it's not called Angel 07 over here, and probably they got rid of the halo. And you would be half right, because when we got the card, they got rid of the halo and changed absolutely nothing else about the card. Now, yeah, a halo is pretty generally associated with actual angels, but it is probably the least angelic thing about this card. Like, I'd say the name is more angel sounding than the actual thing. Like, if they had changed it from Angel 07 and kept the halo, I really don't think many people would have even made the connection, because just looking at it on its own, this thing does not really scream angel to me. I guess I can sort of get it's almost this sort of cybernetic, metallic angel thing, but it still doesn't really click with me, so I think you could have changed the name from Angel 07, and I guess maybe gotten rid of the halo if you're really going to be that hung up about it, and it really wouldn't have seemed like an angel. I just find it very funny. They looked at a card that was literally called Angel 07, and instead of changing the name, just got rid of the halo, forgetting, or I guess not caring enough, that angel is still connected to the Bible. Granted, not all the time. Angel isn't always used in a religious context. It can just be used, to say that somebody's a good person, but generally, I think most people consider the idea of angels when they think of the word angel. But that's just me, and either way, we got an entertaining little change about it. Big Win is notable for not really technically being censored in and of itself, because the Japanese and American ones are largely identical. However, when we brought it over, as you'll notice, there are several cards actually in the card itself. So when we brought it over, we obviously changed the art of Exodia to remove the pentagram from the background that the Japanese version had, to have the weird spellbinding circle that is in the North American prints of the cards. But, and this is really, really hard to see, they also actually translated the cards, yeah, it's kind of wild to me that they even did that. Like, you're barely gonna notice it. I'm literally looking at the images on my computer right now, and I can barely change that. I can barely tell that the text on them is different. So, props on that, Konami, I guess, because you did not need to do that. Meanwhile, with Backup Soldier, we get some pretty weird stuff again. Looking right at it, you might be able to tell what they would change. The horns on this dude on the right are maybe a bit much, given what the card game usually did with characters that had horns that weren't like goats or something. And you would be correct, and they got rid of that, but also they made everybody yellow, and now the background is on fire instead of being blue, because blue is boring, and red makes them too much like demons, maybe. I don't know. If I can say one thing, while I don't totally get why they made the guys yellow instead of red, I do kind of think the fiery background is a little more interesting. However, it does bring back some of the more hellish connotations, maybe. Although, as a kid, I never really thought about that. But the fiery background is at least more interesting than this blue thing. Another really strange one is Shadow of Eyes. If you're familiar with the anime, you probably remember this as being one of Mai's cards, and like I mentioned at the start of this, Mai's cards, the Harpies, were subject to a lot of censorship already. Mai herself was quote-unquote cleaned up, I guess, for the English version of the anime, largely just removing cleavage when that was necessary. And for some insane reason, this card is no different. When we brought it over, we changed the way the eyes look to this more realistic style as opposed to the sort of manga art style that the original card used. Now, that alone would be weird, but it also notably removed the eye shadow that is sort of a pun with the card's name, which is very strange. Yugipedia and the Yu-Gi-Oh Wiki both give sort of general trying to avoid references to sexual attractiveness explanations for why they might have gotten rid of the eyeshadow, but that's never really clicked with me. One, eyeshadow is just normal makeup. Yeah, it's used kind of to enhance sex appeal, but I don't really think eyeshadow inherently has a sexual connotation to it, if you ask me. If that kind of reason really was why Konami of America changed this card, then they must have been really freaking paranoid about parents, man. There's another really interesting and weird one with Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Buffalo. This is the only one of the Brotherhood of the Fire Fist cards that was altered from its Japanese version, and when we brought it over here, we changed the kanji on the bull's head. The kanji that is now on the American card is a different kanji with the same reading as the one that's in the Japanese one, because the kanji for the Japanese one means kill. I think the odds of somebody who's actually worried about something like that and noticing or knowing that kanji meant kill were pretty damn low, but I do applaud Konami of America's sort of completely intense level of effort to go to avoid that. It's a level of overcorrecting akin to remodeling your entire kitchen because you spilled wine on the counter. And then also, for no apparent reason, the white outline around the buffalo is just gone in the English version, because white outlines are too violent? I don't know. Now, this is one that I admit, I'm entirely talking about it most, just because I love the name. This is Nefarious Archfiend Eater of Nefariousness, or Demon Eater in Japan, if you prefer. I will take literally any chance I can to talk about Nefarious Archfiend Eater of Nefariousness because it's a great name. And it just so happens that this card features a great example of really frickin' minor censorship that really didn't even need to be done. You'll notice, or maybe you won't, it's, again, very minor, that in the English version of the card, they have a piece of the skull that the marmot is gnawing on, layered on top of the marmot's teeth, so that it didn't look like it was eating it. It's a really good thing it doesn't have Eater in its name still, or that would be just really stupid. Here's another really, really tiny edit with Aeromage Bergamot. As you can see, Bergamot has all of these candles surrounding them, and when we brought the card over here, we decided to blur the flames so they didn't look like flames or something. I guess the existence of one of the basic elements of life is just a little too much for the kiddies. This isn't exclusive to this card, every other Arrow Mage does it, but this is the one I found out about it on, and so it's the one that I'm spotlighting. Apologies, by the way, if the images aren't very good. Arrow Mage Bergamot just doesn't have good scans that I could find. This next card is one that has been talked about a lot, but I just really wanted to mention it because it's an edit that I find hilarious, and it involves one of my favorite decks. Edgem Sabers, or Edgem Scissors if you prefer the Japanese name, doesn't really seem like the kind of card that would need to be edited over here, but rest assured, Konami of America gave it a glow up. By which I mean they put a glow around the blades of the scissors so you couldn't see them? This was pretty consistent across all the Edge Imp and Frightfur cards where they would just glow over the blades so you couldn't really see them, or in the case of Lion, just making them gold. But I think it's the funniest here because while I don't strictly, again, agree with the idea of censoring these cards, at least it kind of makes sense for, like, the buzzsaw or tomahawk or something. But scissors are a thing that pretty much everybody uses in day-to-day life. Even children, safety scissors exist, so they're not exactly ultra-violent. But I guess Konami of America thought it was just a bit too much. A scythe, though, that one can stay completely unedited. Let's do one more really small one before we get to the final card and take a short little look at Nurse Dragon Maid. Nurse Dragon Maid is actually the reason why I wanted to do this video in the first place, so I feel like it really only makes sense to give her a little bit of focus. Again, looking at it at first, you might not think there's anything that needs to be changed. There's no cleavage, there's not a weapon, there's no blood, there's not a halo in it. But rest assured, when we brought it over, we removed the 2 buttons on the front of her apron. I guess because they implied nipples. I guess I maybe can kind of get why you might make that assumption, but it's still really weird. I don't totally get it. If I'm fully honest, though, I actually do kind of like the censored art more. Maybe it's just because that's the one I'm more used to. I didn't really even know the uncensored one existed for a long time, but I don't know. I just think the art looks better without the extra buttons, so I guess the censorship was worth something. And then for our final card, we have Tribe Drive, a relatively new one and with a very fun bit of censorship. On the art of the card, front and center, we have a few Tri-Brigade kits, but our attention here lies with the one all the way on the right. When this card got released over here, they extended or enlarged the straps so that it covered just that little extra bit of skin on her stomach. In the older days of the card game, this was really common. The early days of the English TCG really didn't like midriffs, but it's a lot less of a thing now, so it's very strange that they did that in the first place. And it's even weirder when you realize Tri-Brigade Kit shows up on a lot of other cards, and this edit is not present in any of the other ones. Granted, you usually can't actually see that part of her in most of the card art. However, you can on Brigade Berbrum the Rampant Rampager, and it's completely unchanged there. I would guess that maybe this was as a result of people within the localization team not talking to each other properly, or even just 2 separate people handling these individual cards, because Berbrum came out first and was unchanged, so for this one to change it is very strange. That, or, if it isn't, a communication censorship issue, then I propose perhaps, when Berbrum was brought over here completely unchanged, somebody saw that little bit of too much skin on the midriff, and got way too ultra horny, went on a total rampage, causing millions of dollars in property damage, destruction and chaos left and right, and the only way to prevent it was to, when Tribe Drive came out, cover up just a little bit extra more skin. With that conspiracy theory out of the way, I think that's a pretty good spot to end on for now. To just go over what I said at the beginning, I really don't intend for this video to be an attack on censorship of these cards or censorship in general. As much as I don't think these cards should be censored anymore, it's 2022. I'm also not that upset about it. It's funny. You can find the Japanese ones pretty easily, and also we get Lost Art promos pretty consistently to give us the original card arts, so it's really not that big a deal. Plus, sometimes altered art gives you a better card, like with Mystic Tomato. our version is just way better. However, I will probably be talking about this again in the future because there are thousands upon thousands of cards in this game, and many of them have been changed stateside. So there's plenty of examples that I didn't talk about here. There were plenty I had that I wanted to talk about that I decided to cut for one reason or another. So our road trip down insane censorship lane is not done. Just consider this a road stop. We're stopping at the gas station, get out of the car, stretch your legs, go inside and get a Coke or Skittles or something, because we're going to get back on the road before too long, methinks. And if there are any interesting censorship examples in the TCG that you'd like me to talk about that you think are funny, that I might have missed for whatever reason, let me know in the comments, because that'll help quite a bit. I did pour through Yugipedia's list of altered card artworks for this video, but I didn't look at every single one of them, and there were just probably some that I might have missed or not totally realized at the time how interesting the censorship might be. So if there are any that you find particularly funny or noteworthy for any other reason, let me know, and they might show up whenever the next time I talk about this whole topic is. If you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a like, it really helps out. If you didn't, I guess dislike too, you might as well. And if you want to see more of this kind of content, of, you know, talking about Yu-Gi-Oh cards or just any of the other stuff that I make, which is largely talking about whatever the hell I feel like, maybe subscribe and stick around, and you'll get, hopefully, notifications if you click the bell, but who the hell really knows with YouTube. The best way to know when I'm going to upload a new video or when I have uploaded a new video is to follow me over on Twitter, @VicFant. I post semi-frequently, and usually when I'm working on a new video, I'll mention it over there. And when I do post a new video, it's tweeted over there. So give me a follow, and then you'll definitely not miss anything, hopefully. And then if you decide you want to throw a couple of bucks my way, you can do that as well. I have a Patreon that is linked in the description, but I want to stress that it is by no means necessary. You get some extra perks, but if you aren't in a position to donate or you just don't want to, that is perfectly okay, and just watching the videos and sharing them with some friends is really more than I can ever ask somebody to do. So, if you want to support me that way, you can, but it is not necessary. And with that said, I think that is going to do it for this video, so I will see you guys next time.